us are here. I've been now in Kazan for 2 years, working with Mountains University and building a group on games development inside of here. And found out about the conference that's going on. Decided that we'd like to come down here and give kind of a talk on some introductory games kind of work, some of the work that we're doing within my lab, and some of the areas that Anopolis is kind of moving into this. So, kind of a title of Introduction to Games Development. Some of you may be wondering what my costume is, and wondering why I have on such this. This is actually my real doctoral robe from the university that I graduated from in Guelph, Canada. So you may notice that this has the whole academic stole. It's the height of fashion of religious monks in the 17th century. So we've kept that kind of tradition going on. So this actually is not a costume. It's a real thing. But usually when I wear this kind of on special occasions, on graduations, on some various things like that. And when I wear it in Russia, I always get the, "What are you doing?" So here it's nice because I can come in and nobody goes, "What is that?" Okay. So go press that on. Okay, so to start out, what I want to talk to you about, well, that's kind of just a little bit about me. This is the work that we're kind of doing in our lab to start out. So we kind of did some work on, Minecraft, on understanding humans. Why do they play Minecraft? Why do they make such actions within it? On kind of understanding that through play traces and gaming traces. We do a lot of work on kind of intuitive design. During our selection process for students, we even had them going through and doing some exercises on board games for that. Looking at kind of like how do we look at representations of expressions? How do we create levels that meet with certain user demands? How do we build better NPCs that better act like humans and can think? And if you're playing Fallout 3, like our gentleman right over here, then how do we know whether he's a good person or a bad person? We would normally think of like karmic systems, but how could we actually make it so our NPCs have memory and know what we've done in the past? So that's kind of what we're up to, and I'll show some other things on that throughout the talk. I want to kind of start out with why, the who, what, where, why, when sort of system in terms of this. And to start off, who's playing our game? What is the demographics out there? Because they are changing quite a bit. Russia is also in a very strange state within this. So one is that the new media of games, of video games and that, the player base right now is aging. They're no longer just for the young. If I was to do this talk 20, 30 years ago, it would basically be, I would have to, put on more of like the school teacher uniform than the university professor uniform for it. Players are aging, yet there still is demand for this new media, for video games, for board games, for that. And gamers are also moving more into mobile platforms. They're moving away from the big box PCs or the consoles, if you're looking at North America. And I'd say there's right now 3 major demographic groups that are being targeted. The one is the hardcore digital gamers, which have kind of always been there. These are the people who, grew up with Pong and have, followed all the way through all the up to Mario's. You have the casual digital gamers, and this is a vastly expanding group. These are the people that are playing, Clash of Clans for 5 minutes on their cell phone, that pick up, do some thing, put it away. Right? The aging group, especially when we're looking at the elderly right now, are a lot of this demographic, this casual gaming set. The other big one is board gaming. Board gaming is expanding year over year, crazy. And I'm not just talking like Parker Brothers, I'm not talking Milton Bradley, I'm talking a lot more of like the Euro games that are coming out. I just was given a game that was produced in Russia by the organizers here. So this sort of stuff is now becoming a rather popular area for people to move into. This is one such board game cafe. I think Russia is actually ahead of the time cafes and that. Yeah. So this is one inside of Toronto, Canada, that is probably built within the last 5 years, and these things are now springing up all over the world, where you can go and you can rent out a table for a certain amount of time, grab a board game, and play it within the cafe, and they have people there to teach you. This is a little bit of a quiz that I did for one of my classes. And you can see that this is kind of your casual set, and look at our 10 hours and more, 7 to 8 hours. So you have a very kind of two means in terms of that. Some other things that I've learned kind of about Russian students is that notice that a lot of this is coming on desktop, laptop, computer very high, smartphone very high. I've noticed that within the Russian market, consoles are not a big thing. And I think that comes from a few different places. The cost, the expenditure, it's a single-purpose device. Not an area that I would say a Russian game developer would want to target as the console market, but should move for more of the desktop, laptop area and smartphone. And I think that's better in a way for developers, because the development market right now in terms of your Nintendos, your Sony PlayStations, and your Xbox, there's a lot of large upfront costs. You have to go and get a developer's kit, you have to go and get a developer set for it, you have to get the licenses for it, very expensive. Desktop, I can right now boot up Unity, I can boot up Unreal, I can probably get on Steam Greenlight, and I can move into that market. Smartphones, Apple, yeah, there's some restrictions on their side. Android's a little bit more free in terms of that, but it's more of an open market for developers. That's good from the one sense of anyone can move into those markets. That's bad from the sense of also that anyone can move into those markets. Okay. So, age and play right now. So we have also a bunch of different mental and physical challenges with an aging player demographic. And these distinctions are becoming way more important in terms of the marketing and the structure of games that are available. So I decided to take Mario. Everybody familiar with Mario? Yeah, okay. So Mario made his first appearance in Donkey Kong, and if you were 15 when Donkey Kong came out, you're now 50. Okay? Moving up, Super Mario Brothers, 45. Super Mario World, 40. Mario 64, that's about me there on 35. Super Mario Sunshine, 28. Wii, Super Mario Maker came out just a couple of years ago. Okay? So you can see that Mario is bridging generations at this point, bridging about 3 generations in terms of its spread. What does this mean? Demographics from the Electronic Standards Association from 2014, they said that 60% of their respondents played game in 2014. Average player age is myself at 31 years, and the average purchaser is 35. 31 years old is your average player in terms of that. That's shocking to me when I see that. Only 29% of game players are less than 18. Right? Wow! Yeah. Wow! You're not weird. Okay. Okay, but what does that say for violence in video games? What does that say for storylines? What does that say for mature themes and situations? Right? We can market with stuff like that, right? Gamers over 50 years of age have increased 32% in 1 year for that. Okay? So we got this aging player demographic, and people are in on that. According to the Electronic Standards Association, this is USA demographics. I don't know what it looks like in Russia. I don't have those numbers. This is a great quote. People of all ages play video games. There's no longer a stereotype game player, but instead a game player could be your grandparent, your boss, or even your professor. Okay. So let's take a look at one of the studies of age in video games. This is a really interesting study. Came out about 2 years ago on Battlefield 3 in terms of that. Play style, showing your age. So one of the largest studies to date for these types of gameplay traces. Nearly 10,000 people responded to this call. That's a huge amount in terms of gameplay traces. They were put through, they handed in basically all of their gameplay statistics, their play traces. They had a general questionnaire, this is your age, sex, location. They did a personality test, which is kind of having to do with the big factor 5 in terms of it. So they control for personality. What are they doing for that? So big 5, the first one is open to experience. So you would be open to experience if you enjoy meeting new people. They'll select a restaurant that they'll never ate at and one that they've been to many times. Okay? Conscientiousness. I always follow a schedule. I always double check work before submitting. This is something that my students need to do more. Extroversion. I'm comfortable around people. I'm the life of the party. So depending on how you would score, do I like, do I dislike these statements, then you can come up with kind of a personality picture of someone. Agreeableness, I make people feel at ease, I sympathize with others, and neuroticism, which they've kind of changed because, I don't know, it's a fine word. I get upset easily, I worry about things. And so they'll score it on what's known as a Likert scale. And a Likert scale is basically if you've ever got a phone survey, you've probably had the I strongly disagree, I disagree, no opinion, agree, strongly agree. And then that plots you inside of this space, of the ocean space. Once we have your position within the ocean, then we can start to look at how you act within a game world and then glue it into that. Okay? So ocean is one of the, I think the other one probably a lot of people have heard about is the Briggs-Myers. Briggs-Myers has a bit of a difficulty with scientific work and study in that it changes far too drastically. So if I ran Briggs-Myers today, I came back a month later and I ran Briggs-Myers, you probably will change your position within the space. The ocean has been found to be a little bit less
fluid.
Flexible.
Yes, thank you very much. Flexible variants inside of that. So it's better for kind of scientific work. So Briggs-Myers is nice if you're trying to kind of create characters for a role-playing game. There's a few different things. I think Extra Credits had a wonderful show about that. But it's not so good when you're actually trying to do scientific study of something. So ocean tests have become kind of the new black for that. How do older players differ when they ran this study against all of these things? So over 10,000 people. Older players kill and die less. So our risk factors change. As you get older, you don't kill as much and you don't die as much. Yeah. You die of other causes, right? Older players score less on non-objective play measures, so they play the objective. So kill-death ratio is not something that an older player will look at. What they look at is, did I win the game or not? Did my side win? Older players also focus on winning for that. They play more. Interesting, right? They play more. That's because we have these things called weekends, and the job stops and we go and we play, and then we go back to work on Monday. Whereas students probably drop out for 2-3 hours, then move back in, or maybe it's the number of games. I don't know the exact reason for that, but older players play more. Age influences a lot of the selection of class and vehicles. Older players are more likely to choose support role classes, and older players choose tanks over helicopters and jets. Again, they're focusing on objective play and risk factors. So, interesting, out of 10,000 people this came up, and they were controlling for personality factors. So, the only thing that they're trying to look at in this study is age. So, player modeling can be more accurate a lot if age is corrected in the study. So if you're looking at how do older players act, what do they do, you can start to look at that in terms of player modeling. And they found that 40 to 50% of the gameplay values of how many times you had a capture of the flag, of how many times did you get killed, of what class you selected, 40 to 50% of that could be explained by the gameplay value of age. Playability increases in the early 20s, then begins to decline swiftly, but the decline slows over time. So your ability will drop off, but the experience kind of comes in to fill with that back up. Okay. So player modeling, why do they play our game? So up to now I've kind of talked about who's playing, what the demographics look like, how that kind of affects it, but why are they playing this? So one of the things that we want to look at when we're kind of doing games design is, can we come up with our typical video game player, of our target audience, our target player. And one of the ways that has been brought forward to think about this is play personas. So personas is a method utilized within software engineering where what I do is I say, okay, let's take a car. If I'm designing a car, who's a potential driver of that? There's, maybe a pregnant woman could be an example of this. Okay, so we have a pregnant woman. her name is Susie. Susie goes to this place every day, and they come up with basically a false human. And they create the whole story driven around it, and then they say, how will Susie like this vehicle? And the idea is if my thinking as a designer differs from what Susie would think, then I should design for Susie, not for myself. And part of it, they say, personas avoid self-referential designs where designers may unconsciously project their own mental models, working as reality checks, helping designers keep the focus on a limited subset of users that have been deemed to be primary. The biggest issue with this is there's a lot of studies that actually say, no, that's not the case. When we actually did empirical studies with managers, and we said to them, hey, could you take a look at this business decision, think about Susie, they would try to then frame whatever their own decisions were in Susie's mind. So they had a confirmation bias based off of this. This is coming out of research from 2015 having to do with marketing for it. Personas, this is coming kind of very early after personas came out, that they rarely take into account real data available, do not necessarily have much relation to actual uses of the models, limited ability of them to have some sort of scientific model based on them and quantitative. And one thing that really bothers me myself is that after the development phase, a lot of persona models, they say throw away your persona models. And then when you go into maintenance or you go to design, you know, the new car or the game 2.0, you don't look at your original personas. And you create your own new personas. But Susie is still pregnant and still driving cars. Maybe not, but Susie is a representative of class. Pregnant women still exist. So why do we throw away that model? And then we have to create new models. Maybe we forget about Susie in version 2.0 because of that. Okay, so it's so a lot of this has to do with that there's no way to force a persona to, one, exist, and two, to, you know, punch people. You know, I don't want that. I'm going to have it come back and yell at me. So how can we address them for games? So personas, generalized framework, archetypical user for design and marketing, they act as a framework for this. Personas, I'm not saying are a bad idea. They're a rather good idea. Here's the person I'm designing this thing for. Let's make a model of this person. Let's utilize that. But a persona doesn't push on a developer as a real user would. If I had Susie in the room, she can say, no, I don't want that thing. So hence giving the persona an agency beyond just the developer's own mind would make this better. For example, with Susie and the pregnant woman, Ford engineers, what they did is they actually had a bodysuit that they would wear when they're designing cars that simulates the weight and pressures that a pregnant woman would have. And then they go and sit in the car. And it was amazing to hear what the engineers say when they come out of the car, because they say things like, oh, okay, I need to, you know, maneuver where I put all of these devices because Susie can't use it. So that's a physical way to force them to think like Susie. AIs, artificial intelligences within games, acting as the player in that place, could also do that. Could also be this physical thing. So persona is an archetype of a player, AIs can act as players. So the idea is for every persona, we implement an AI that is equivalent to the persona. So if my persona is, Susie likes to go around dungeons and killing everything, then we create an AI that does just that aims for that as the goals of it. So Holmgren et al. Kind of look at this, personas versus clones for player decision making. They created a procedural playtesting model. So playtesting is very, very expensive. I have to get a whole bunch of people into a room, I have to probably pay them or feed them or do something to get them to play my game, because, I don't know, people don't like playing games when you've got like cameras upon them and you're monitoring everything that they do and you've got a little checkboard and you're going, how are you feeling right now? You know, that's not a nice play situation. So, there we go. So, they created these kind of evolved agents to go after this. They use mini dungeons, which are just a 12 by 12 board. Tiles can either have walls or non-walls. There's monsters to kill, there are treasures for taking, there's healing, and there's an exit. And what they wanted to do was create a bunch of different ways to play through this. So first they looked at play traces from actual humans. They went out, they found 38 humans that were willing to take the pizza, and do this trial. They had 10 different levels, and so that gave them 380 individual player traces. And so here, this is one guy going through and kind of killing everything. This guy kind of dodges this area that gets to the exit. So then they defined 5 different persona AIs. Exit. Its goal is, I just try to leave the level. Runner attempts to leave the level in the fastest method possible. So exit is just, I'm going to leave. Runner is, here's the shortest path to the exit, run for it. Survivalist is risk averse, so if it doesn't have to deal with the monster to get to the exit, it won't, but it can take treasures when it sees them. So it aims to grab as many treasures as it can that are easy. Monster killer attempts to kill all monsters, treasure, even if it dies. Treasure collector attempts to collect all the treasures, even if it dies. So, could we see this inside of our own players, that this could happen? We all know people who are the sniper inside of something, right? They want, you know, the camper, the reckless guy that goes up and does this. So you can kind of define this for quite a few different games. Clones, what they did is they evolved a player controller to go over those 380 traces, and then create something that was close to how humans play, and these acted as the baseline agents. So they found that both persona-based and clones were close in terms of the actions that they made. So humans could be modeled by a persona set. So some issues, there's no discussion really as to which personas were in the class of humans, and clones were more likely to produce a generalized play method. If I say to you, let's take the average person in this room, then they're going to be, you know, half woman, half man, some with half glasses. It doesn't really fit, right? Average is usually not a good metric on actions like how do you play a game. Personas, they had to kind of match the best fit. So personas were also much worse than clones on metric for which they were not created, not evolved. Clones generalized better. So looking at a whole bunch of different human play traces was a better way to make a generalized agent than a persona-based agent. And they did this also as part of critics for dungeon generation. So now they said, okay, we have these clones, we have these personas, let's make some dungeons and see what they say of them. Does the killer say, I don't like this level because I can't kill enough? Or does the runner say, this level is impossible? So again, they had this same sort of representation. They did some evolutionary methods for this. They kind of mixed and combined levels together in different ways and came up with a set that met with what the population was asking for. So here's our monster killer, and you can see that in the monster killer levels, here's my entrance and my exit, here's my monsters. All of my monsters are relatively easily accessible. This is a level that a monster killer would like. And there's enough potions and health potions that you can probably kill all the monsters. Our treasure collector moves all of the monsters out of the way, so he doesn't have to face any of the monsters, and he can basically come down and grab all of the treasures relatively easily. I think there's only one that's guarded by a monster right here. So that would be a good level for someone who loves to collect treasures. This is our risk-adverse one that only kills when he can, and you can see he comes down and he can kill a few, but then he's got an easy pathway to the exit, or he can come up here and grab some things. Our treasure collector with a risk fitness. So the risk fitness was adding in an element of I die sometimes. Okay. So depending on what your personas are, you can then design levels that either they like, dislike, and put a fitness against them. Okay. Any questions as of this point?
Well, actually, yes.
Yeah.
I have a question about the persona of Suzy. Maybe because some authors and some game designers say that you should aim at the would-be person, but you should not aim at Suzy as she is, but you should aim that Suzy dreams to be Aragorn. I don't know. Or
okay. So kind of aiming at where their want is.
Yes, some ideal person they want to be would be Suzy, and that game designers say that Suzy will pay for her dream.
Okay.
That she will see the ideal Suzy, she can be there in the game.
So are we looking at that in terms? So you're talking about kind of the narrative as you get through the game, that it will upgrade you as you go.
Yeah.
So in board games, that's a little bit harder. In playing games, I'm probably going to get into that as we talk about it. But it also has to do with kind of what is their pathway to make that ideal. So if you're looking at something like Fallout, there's many different ways to move through that space. Or ideal at the end is probably not to always be the generalized person, it's to be a specialist of some sort of ability, and then we select traits and actions based around that. So I can see this moving forward with that, but it also has to do with what your innate actions are. Okay. I think there was one more over here. Yep.
Yes. My question is, in your presentation you just used one level for 5 different types of players. For runner, for
survivalist, monster killer.
yes. So you make one level and you develop it for many people.
Right.
But maybe it will be easier to divide your level and sort it by difficulty. So easy,
right.
medium, and hard.
Right.
And the easy level will be aimed on runner, for example. Medium is for treasure hunter, and the hard one is for challenges and monster killer.
So what you can do is go through and you can evaluate it against 5 or 6 different personas, and you can come up with, like, this level is either beatable by a level 3 barbarian or a level 14 wizard, because there's something in there. So you could measure it against a whole bunch of different personas. Personas could also be classes as well.
Not the type of the player's mind, just the class in the game.
It could be both. It could either be what you think a player will act. So in some games you don't really have classes, you have skill sets and you can select amongst them and build your own. In others you have well-defined, I'm a barbarian, I'm a wizard, I'm a elf, whatever you want inside of there. So it depends on kind of how you set up your game. But the idea is you could measure this with an AI going through that pretends to be all of these, then you can kind of check, okay, our elves are going to die on this. What's a new path? Maybe there's a quest item that they need for their quest path. How can you realign that to make sure that it's defeatable by them? Or what do you do in order to have maybe an alternative path?
Well, actually, there are some questions on this study.
Yeah.
Because when you make basic elements like the treasure, monster, exit, and potion,
sure,
you get five set of classes. But why was this element was chosen? Because if I would take, I don't know, bridges, there can be some class and a bridge lover or bridge hater. Why? What's the logic of the element chosen? Why the monster?
So why did they come up with these the elements within the game?
Yes, because the classes are based on the usage of the elements.
Yes.
So why these elements? That's my question.
I don't know.
In your study, you are looking for. I'm sorry for my English.
No problem.
Here you present a clear strategies. Polar. The one who likes only treasure, the one who likes only kill, but most players have mixed strategies. They do like kills and treasure, and sometimes they do want to survive or find the exit.
So Lapis and Homgard, when they did this work, they were looking at these very polarizing opposites.
Refined.
Yeah, I think that there probably is some sort of spectrum in there between the two. But in terms of how do you take that in, you'd have to come up with some.
Здравствуйте, уважаемые владельцы Рено с госномером 383, просьба передвинуть автомобиль в связи с работами на фасаде.
Okay. What was your question? No, okay. So in terms of that, when you're doing this, yes, they put some very polar opposites. Part of that is because very simple early study trying to understand this. So they're looking at these very simplistic models and then trying to do this as, hey, this is a thing we can do, and look, it kind of works on this. So I'm assuming that for actual larger games, that there probably is this, and also you'd have to do those player studies at some point.
Уважаемый автомобиль Уважаемый владелец автомобиля Renault 383, просьба...
So with that, inside some of my own work, I was looking at how the framework and how do we bridge this now. Remember how I said earlier that one of the big problems with this is that they don't look at it, they throw away everything. I'm saying don't throw it away, and also take gameplay traces from real players after the product is out, after you have your MVP, and then redefine your personas. So put some more in there. So you could have a treasure hunting, killing, you know, somewhere in there. And if you see that in your actual gameplay, then you need to readjust for that.
My question is always the same. So first you said that we are looking for our targets, our SUSI. And after that we have these personas. Well, where is the balance between this? So if we have half of SUSIs which are monster killers, or half of SUSIs which are survivors, how can we balance our level?
Right, so what you need to do is run through with both AIs and try to find, there probably is a set of levels such that both SUSI A and SUSI B can both complete that level successfully at the same level. Or, sorry, this is one of those, I think there was, yeah. So that they complete them at the same rate in terms of it, yes.
If we have A, B, C, D, or etc., it will be the same.
That you would want to design levels, you might have levels where you want it to be harder on B and then easier on A, or vice versa, but then sometimes you want everybody to be happy with it, right? So in early levels of the game, in early ones, you can say, okay, I want A, B, C all to be able to complete this within this time frame. For later levels, you might have it branch off in terms of the story or the narrative or whatever you're doing in terms of that, and have it be, this is really easily completable by C, but A and B will have a hard time at it. It's not impossible, but at least it's very hard for them. And maybe this is something to also enforce, that a player needs to somehow change their strategy around. Maybe in that level I go, well, I normally am a treasure collector, but this is just too hard, so I need to be a monster killer, I need to be a this in order to solve that. So don't even think with a persona that they always need to play that way. We can make them kind of learn from that experience. I think fighting games are very good at this. There's a lot of like the amiibos and that, where they monitor how you're playing through the game, and then based on how you're playing through the game, they then adjust to become more difficult as you go on. They learn what you do, and then creates a strategy to beat you.
So whoever adaptates to me as a player. So whoever and the game will adaptate to me.
Yes. So they have what's known as adaptive difficulty in terms of that. So design and narrative. So I want to talk about kind of there. One of the big things that I've touched on it now, up till now, with the kind of the design of the levels based on these play traces, but you've probably heard of procedural content generation, or PCG. This is the new big kind of area in terms of games development coming out right now. Tegelius, very nice gentleman, and he's now in New York, but I met him in Denmark and did some studying in his lab, says that procedural content generation in games refers to the creation of game content automatically using algorithms. Okay? So this is creating some sort of game asset for this. Wikipedia is a little bit targeting towards computer graphics. Procedural content generation creates content algorithmically rather than manually. In video games, graphic content can be created on the host computer instead of a pre-rendered artwork package for that. So still we're seeing this word automatically, algorithmically through it. Procedural content generation wiki, so refining down to there. Creating game content using a random or pseudo-random process that results in an unpredictable range of possible gameplay spaces. Okay, so we're building content, it's unpredictable, it's random. I don't know if I like those two words with it, but it's big, it's gameplay space. Ian Parberry, procedural content generation is the automatic creation of video game content, where content means anything that is traditionally created by an artist or designer, such as maps, textures, levels, and objects. Okay, so basically building everything. Content creation usually requires equal parts creativity, we like creativity, and scut work. So scut work is basically like, you know, drudgery, right? Boo, drudgery, yay, creativity. So the aim of procedural content generation is to relieve the designer of the scut work in ways that create more opportunities for creativity. And really, all this amounts to is, for all of these definitions, I'm going to make some things automatically in the game that would normally be developed by a human designer, and hopefully allow a human designer to now think about how does the world feel, the fluff, how do I ensure that, you know, they can get from part A to part B. So each of these definitions have the notion of creation not by a designer but by an algorithm. Also, what processing element in terms of that, whether it's offline or online. Creativity, yay, scut work, boo. Random content, it's not quite random, it's more targeted. And there's this idea of game spaces. So there's this large area of the game we can build all these things for. And when it comes to game spaces, you see this a lot in some of the kind of smaller development teams, but larger works is what they're aiming for. We see this in Binding of Isaac, the layout of the various levels, the pieces, what enemies are inside of it, what levels you get from it, these roguelikes. Faster Than Light has this too, in terms of how you move through, what enemies you face, how everything's set up, what encounters you have. Spelunky, again, how the level is laid out. So a lot of these up till now have basically been roguelikes. But we've probably also seen this one, right? Minecraft, the original world is based upon a random number generation seed, and then that creates the world out from that. Yeah, box. Okay. So I think part of it is that PCG is not really a magic bullet that I think everybody says that it is. How many people are familiar with No Man's Sky and the whole controversy around that?
Wow.
So they basically came out with, hey, we're going to build like the whole universe and you can fly through the universe and you can go anywhere and do anything and da 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 da. Okay, and when I heard that I was like, no. So it shouldn't be relied upon to make really the entire game, because No Man's Sky, it's really a great idea, but you know what was really lacking? The narrative, the flow through it, why am I doing this? All those things that we just talked about, right? About why are people playing this game? So it's a wonderful force multiplier when it's used well. Look at all of those games I showed you. I think every single one of them was a development team of no more than about 2-3 people. Time spent making a PCG generation has to look at both quality and also what content it can create. So I want it to be of high quality. I want it to be content where you don't say, oh, it's obviously been randomly designed because this level is unplayable. It's also a wonderful gameplay mechanic. Your roguelikes, moving through those spaces and having them regenerate through them. PCG does not excuse poor mechanics or bad designs, such as No Man's Sky. It just doesn't excuse that because my world is big. Okay, there's nothing to do in your world, but it's big. It's a tool, right? Like anything else in our development tool set, you need to apply it when it suits the needs of the situation. So where are those needs? Right? So a lot of games now, you have this kind of idea of tile sets, right? Especially in board games. A lot of people are here kind of more from the board game side than the digital games. And you have tiles that you place this, that there's a lot of tiling on this. It allows you to have a lot of repeated patterns of this. If I wanted to build this room, I could kind of chop it into little sections and, you know, we've got the floor here, okay, that's going to be this. The walls are pretty much the same, I can glue them together, so that saves space in terms of it, saves me memory, saves me on kind of storage for that. I just need to store the individual elements, and then I have to store where do the elements go to build it up. Gives me texture bases to work from. That saves on a lot of art, because I don't have to design everything freehand. I can build kind of these units and then glue them together. Allows us a great expressive base for the connection, reduces memory. So tiles, yay. And we've known about tiles all the way back since the 17 to 1800s in Prussian Kriegsstil. Here is a bunch of suitably mustached Prussian generals looking over a games board here, basically the precursor of Warhammer and that. And so this gentleman here is going, no, 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 I can totally do that. And this guy's going, no, you can't. And this guy's going, let me check the rule sheet. Okay. So here it is, Spiel, German war game. Okay. It was one of the first to have kind of codified rule system, and it had a movable terrain board with n by n grid of squares with different types of terrain on it that you could play on. And one company, one of the first companies that made these kind of tables, that's one of them there, created a special purpose table where you could actually roll up your board. So you would roll basically big cubes, and depending on which side the cube came out, that would be slotted into the terrain for that. And they would use this for officer training primarily. Okay. Here's some more of it. You can see the tiles being slotted in. Here's kind of a better developed board than that. We see this also, here's zombies, building the city and putting the zombies on it. I can place down new tiles of the city. It gives me a random experience every time. It allows me to not really see what's going on. I have a fog of war available to me, so there's wonderful things out of that. Carcassonne, right? Basically, this whole game is laying of tiles and placing them. There's your tile stack out of that. Diablo. Diablo is a big giant tile set for that. So here's the Diablo creator. Gamespy asked him, other games have tried to do the randomly content generation without much success. Why is it that Diablo can make it work? And he says, randomness is hard to do. It's hard to make things look and feel random to a certain extent, and it's incredibly expensive, he says. So this is why I'm saying that it's a force multiplier when used well. So let's say you have a good-sized dungeon, use our dungeon's example, 12 to 15 rooms, maybe even a bit less. And so for that, you basically have to make 80-ish room tiles in order to make a one look random every time that you play through it. Okay, so lots of content that's required to do that. But once you have that, it then becomes easy to slot them together. Here is, so this level here, that's the tile set out of it. And you can also have other little units. You can have other tokens, set pieces, right? You can have the boss room. You can have the forbidden layer, right? But maybe you have to have, like, you know, it has to look this way or it has to feel this way for this scene. But the area up to it, you don't really care about. The player has to traverse through it and has to face some challenges. How it exactly looks, I'll let a generator do that. Tile size also allows us to define player skills and actions against this. So here's our little knight here, and he can shield bash up to 4 squares out, and here is the distance that that means in the game. And visually, you can also put signifiers. So you notice here that there's like this repeated pattern along the wall. Even if you didn't have this guidelines, you can kind of sense where 4 squares is inside of that. So tile-based placement, you can see this in a naive tile placer, you would have something like this. Create a set of tiles with a number of connections or walls. Well, the map is not large enough, so do I want a big tension, small tension? Select a random tile, place into one of the 3 connection points. If no connection points, start over. I built too small. And that's our random generator. Here's our larger element tiles that we can use to glue those together. And here's how they look kind of in some of the later Diablos. So you can see here, that's tile A, that's tile A repeated, so even in this generation, here's the same level generated again. There's M from before, that little L block. There's A with this kind of like, I don't know, looks like a shaver there. Again, you can see A, there's M again. So all 3 of these levels are using the same element tiles, but have a different kind of look and feel to them. So you can get a lot more content in. If you had to replay through this game, or it was another area in the same game, you're not going, this looks just like the last one. Okay. So genetic programming is one way that we used to do this, evolutionary programming. So you have a population of tree representations of solutions to a problem. We call them chromosomes. It's kind of a cartoon version of biology. And it's manipulated by crossovers or mutations. Crossover combines some of one level and another level and glues them together. Mutation makes a small change in a single level. So each chromosome is assigned a fitness score. Our fitness score could be, this persona really likes it, or this persona really hates it. And it's based on the ability to solve our problem. And our problem, this is build a cool level, whatever cool level is. So we need a good definition of that. Chromosomes with a high fitness are selected to continue on to the next generation. And the process is repeated until either a threshold of time is reached. You have 5 minutes to build this level while I have my loading screen, or a chromosome with a specific level of fitness is found. I'm happy with this level at this point. Okay. So here's our chromosome as a tree. Each node in the tree is a tile, and child nodes are placed relative to the parent. And so the nice side effect of this sort of representation, too, is there's lots and lots and lots of pathfinding algorithms and other kind of search algorithms through levels that are utilized via tree structures or graph structures. And if you develop your level with this in mind, you can then easily play A star over it and these types of systems. Okay? So here's the results of some of our early work on this. So in this case, what we were trying to do is create a fitness that said keep short, tight, compacted groups of rooms, make hallways between them. A hallway is defined as a basic room connected to a basic room, and if there's up to 5 basic rooms, we give it more and more fitness. If it puts a hallway off to nowhere, it decreases fitness. I have to put at most 3 boss rooms, which are the highlighted ones. The 3 boss rooms have to be placed as far away as possible from the initial start point, which is this little square there, and that's basically what we told it to do in the fitness. And then we let it run, it placed a bunch of rooms, it would breathe for so long, and then we stopped. So after 2,000 generations with 500 max rooms, we ended up with a couple of levels that look like this. Okay. Could we see those in a game? It's a little bit big, maybe, but you know, if I was doing a D&D game, that's reasonably well. Now, what if I wanted to get this done quickly? So this was given 30 seconds on an average PC. We were able to get 500 generations with 100 max rooms, and we ended up with something that looks like this. That's probably closer to a Diablo dungeon in terms of size and scope, with 3 bosses. Now, a lot of times, you don't want to have your boss rooms that close to each other. You want to have some path between them. So we made a small change to the fitness function, and we said increase the length between boss rooms. That you gain more fitness if you increase those lengths between those. And this is what we came up with. So I'm not even telling it, design a level that looks like X. I'm saying this is the rule of a level, this is the pieces you have, go. And this is what it's building. You can see I've got my 3 boss rooms, and I have long paths between them. Okay.
And 4 hours to get from one to each other.
Exactly. This is all of Skyrim or something like that, right? Okay. So again, 500 max rooms connected through that. Okay. We also had one with gating. Are you familiar with gating? You come to a boss. You have to defeat the boss to get to the next part of the level, or you have to get to a door with a key in order to get to the next part of the level. Or you walk through a hallway and the thing crashes down behind you, and then I walk forward. Right? You have to go this way. So gated levels with bosses, this is what we're able to come up with. So you can see our 3 colored regions. This is an example of a little bit of an evolutionary dead end in a way. So here we have one of our levels that's been kind of, this guy's rooms have kind of moved around this boss, so he can't build out. So this is kind of like a, it's like an evolutionary dead end. So sadly it didn't. When we ran it again, we ended up with something like that. So you can see that there is some sort of amount of similarity because of that tree cutting. There's a few things that we're working on to try to remove this problem from the generator. But you can see that just by changing a fitness function and a few other parameters, I can go from big size level, small size levels, levels with long paths between bosses, and gated levels. We're working on Hotline Miami right now. So we're trying to put some of these into actual games. These are probably closer and better for if you were going to start playing D&D tomorrow. And now we're trying to create Hotline Miami. So I want to get into actual games that are being played today. We've reverse engineered their, they had a level designer package. We've reverse engineered the files for that. So I can now directly do coding and then put it out in the same file format, and then bring it into the generator. So this is actually laying boxes either on top of or under another one, because Hutline mainly works off of a lot of interconnected rooms with doorways, so there's very limited sight lines for it. So we're working on kind of building those right now. Okay. So how does this bridge in the story? So you've seen a little bit of narrative here, right? That this is, you beat a boss, then you go into the rest of the boss level. How do we look at stories, developers? So here, this is one of my favorite games as a child, was Super Mario Land 2, the 6 golden coins on Game Boy. I used to play this all the time. And here is Mario's world that he's inside of. And so you've got various zones that Mario can go to. When he beats a zone, he gets a coin, hence the 6 golden coins. And then once he gets all of the coins, he goes and fights Wario in the first appearance. So we can look at this like this. Story in Mario Land 2, Wario is locked in Mario's castle behind a door. Door requires those coins to open. Each coin is locked by a boss. Each boss is on a world. Each world has a number of stages. Mario begins without the coins. So this is your growth and development that you were talking about, right? So I start with Mario wants his castle back. That's the achievable at the end of the day, and I'm moving my story back through there, and now I have to go this way. How does Mario get to it? Motivation. I will grow more powerful, take back the coins, defeat Wario, win back my castle. So now I have Mario's motivation. So now I create a directed acyclic graph backwards through it. So I have the stages of the world, the final stage of the world boss. I have that in multiple different stages, and all of those flow to obtaining the 6 golden coins, and then final fight with Wario. So these are my achievables, these are my levels that I have to create in our game path. We see this also as framing devices within Candy Crush. Candy Crush Saga has this, you bump into somebody along the road, and then by the end of like the 20 levels, then you go to the next person, and they've got a new problem for that, and each one of these stages has its own issues with that. So, Candy Crush Saga is this journey through a nice magical world, but it has this I'm growing stronger, I'm getting better. Clash of Clans Boom Beach single player has this framing as well. In Clash of Clans we have the fighting of the goblins. In Boom Beach it takes even farther. In that human players' bases are colored as the black arrow. So even if I do player versus player, it looks like I'm going player versus enemy in terms of that. So you're the hero in your own story, and you're a bad guy to everyone else. For that. Okay. Gaining power, big, huge thing inside of a lot of games for giving a good motivation. Look at this. This is the sniper tower at HQ level 21. And it's big, and it's got huge armor plates, and it's got, you know, lots of stuff on it, and big sniper tower. Boom cannon becomes a huge board. Machine gun now has 4 barrels. So the more and bigger and better and more plates that we put on there, the better you are. And so upgrade your headquarters to the next level, unlock sneaky jump lines. So they're giving you a little bit every time. And for our casual gamers, this is where, by the way, you can also pay us $10 and bypass that and be better. Okay, so directed acyclic graphs can also be placement tools for stories within the topology in terms of those levels. So the topology of the story could also be put into these types of room generators for this. So here's maybe our movement layout. We have some rooms inside here. We have some keys that open locks. And then these are the rooms that are connected through there. And based on how those locks action, then we create a level that meets with that, and you can see that it has these doors against it for that meets with that room layout. Right? Story guides. Start. I'm going to fight with an enemy. I'm going to loot a key, and then I can unlock the door, pick up a health potion, interact with the avatar, fight the boss, loot the treasure, and end. I need to map that into a level. So here is our start, navigate, fight with enemy. Here's our start, navigate, fight with enemy area. Then I'm going to loot the key, go up here. There's an altar over here. I fight the boss, I loot the treasure, and I go leave. So there's a lot about kind of matching both the narrative space in with the play space, and coming up with the narrative space first, and then enforcing that in your generated levels. And it follows this idea of kind of loops. How many have seen this, the Deming cycle? probably a few of you might have seen this. So the idea is that you have act, plan, do, check, and you continue to start a cycle. And every time that you make the cycle, you're supposed to figure out what the new idea is. Okay? So this has to do with time improvement over time. Okay? So how would this look in terms of a narrative or action-based? So we have a model. Model is we have a Goomba. What's this thing? Imagine I'm playing Mario for the first time. What is that thing? I don't know. Right? That's how we learn. I don't know. I have a thing. I have some ideas of how that thing works. Looks evil. Let's do something to it. So the action is maybe I jump onto it. Right? What happens if I jump onto it? And then I hit it. And then, so this is my check. This is my plan, act. Oh no, I didn't hit him correctly or somehow and I died. Okay, so that gave me some rules, right? A Goomba has some rules about him that are enforced by the game. And from those rules, we then get feedback, right? We see, okay, maybe how do I switch it this way? So let's go back to our deming cycle. I have an idea of what something is like. I plan, I go, I'm going to jump on this Goomba. I jump on that Goomba. Did the Goomba die? Yes. Okay, my actions need to change from now on. Okay? So I'm constantly going through these sorts of cycles. So if I'm going through all these little cycles, in this case it's jumping on a Goomba. Jumping on a Goomba might have cycles under it that hold it together, right? Because a lot of actions, I'm walking, I'm talking, I'm manipulating projector. A lot of these has to do with, when I was a young child, I had to learn how to walk, I had to learn how to talk, I had to learn how to manipulate this computer, I had to learn how to build a slide presentation. So even though giving a presentation is scaffolded, is held up by all of these other learning actions that I made, 20, 30 years ago. So here, jump up could be one of these. How do I jump up in Mario, right? Move right could be something that I have to learn in Mario. Where is that on the controller? Where is that on the action? Kill Goomba, right? It is scaffolded on move right and jump up. So in a lot of games, you'll have these kind of actions, and games try to teach this to you, or good games at least try to teach this to you, that you need to kind of have the action of move right. Mario can move right. And so the original, there's lots of treatises on Mario level World 1.1 as to how it teaches you to play Mario. Because it starts Mario off on the left of the screen, nothing else is in front of you. If you had never seen this controller before, at some point you're going to press right and go, oh, Mario can move right to advance. Jump up, oh, one of these buttons must do something. And they put a Goomba in front of you, and if you don't know how to jump, you will die. So it has these quick cycles in terms of learning through it. So when you're looking at the design of this, in terms of these narrative cycles as well, you need to look at where does the learning cycles happen in terms of the narrative. When did I do those actions for scaffold? Okay. So scaffoldings let players learn, and that's what good games do. So players are not subjected at once to all gameplay elements. How many people have kind of opened up a game and gone, I don't know what to do, and there's just like, hundreds of graphs and charts. I think everybody opening up a role-playing game for the first time, right? Bring it, here's D&D, long. Right? You had to sit there and you probably had to read through quite a bit before you could even begin a general game, or you had to find somebody who knew how to play it. Video games sadly do not have the here's how you play it thing other than the annoying little, hey, listen kind of, thing going on inside of them, and we don't want that. We need to show them. So we don't want to rely on just tactual feedback. Players also need to be able to make mistakes. There was one game that I saw that where they said, we're going to create a first-person shooter in which if you die in a first-person shooter, you are never allowed to play the game again. It will just shut down and delete itself from your computer and never allow you to play it and mess up your registry so that way if you ever try to reinstall it, it won't do. And I thought, that is the stupidest thing ever. It's a first-person shooter. It is designed for you to go and kill people, and that people will make mistakes and do things. It's like your player base will be gone within the first day. Because somebody could jump on from COD or one of these things, kill all the other players who doesn't care, and that's the end of the game. You know, there's no way of maintaining that market model. So players need to be able to make mistakes. Players are given kind of each mechanic kind of one at a time in order to build on prior experience. Candy Crush does this via multiple levels in their stages, right? They have an entire thing where it's like, okay, now I'm going to show you how those chocolate things that get on top of everything if you don't destroy them quickly enough work via this level. I'm going to show you how this works via this level. And then what you'll see is in later levels to go, okay, you already know about this, you already know about this, you already know about this, here they're all together. You go, ah, okay? Feedback should be visual, auditory, and consistent, okay? We're in a games medium, we can use audio, we can use visuals, we can use also rumble packs and feedback like that, right? If I'm driving a car and I get on the edge, they put crumple strips there, right? To make sure, oh, I'm too far over, I'll move over. It's visual, it's auditory, and it's haptic in that case. So Mario jumping on a Goomba, if the Goomba just, disappeared off my screen, okay, what did I do? Did I do that? Did something do that? Auditory, you get that whoop whoop, and you get a little 100 coming out of them. There's all these actions that tell you that, oh, you did good in this case. When Mario dies, and he jumps off the screen in terms of that. Extra lives, retry the level, etc. work for that. So good games have these sorts of things built in order to kind of give you a, oh, you made a mistake, okay, you're learning this, here's a curve. Doesn't mean you can't ramp the curve up later on, it just means that start your time to put that in place. Okay. Questions at this point?
Well, talking about some cycles in the game, at which point these cycles will be disturbed?
At which point can I disturb the cycle?
Okay, I'm trying to play the game, and then do always the same thing in the cycle. 1, 2, 3. What should I add there to not to disturb me with this the same things, the same movements?
So a lot of it has to do with kind of the consistency inside of the game, inside the actions. And if you want to introduce a new mechanic, is that part of it? You're trying to introduce something new into the cycle. Okay. So if you're trying to introduce something new, you kind of almost want to show them how to use that thing separate without any risk, right? So think about, do you ride a bicycle?
Suppose yes.
Okay, so but when you're learning a bicycle, did they put you on a full-on, adult bicycle and say, have at it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Russian educational system. And you fell over and hurt yourself a lot during that.
Yeah.
But in many places, including, Denmark, for example, where they have all sorts of things, they have, okay, we're gonna put some training wheels on, right? So build some training into it, right? So Zelda, you get a new item in Zelda. What's the first thing that you do when you get a new item in Zelda? They put you in a room where you have to finish some sort of trap, or get around some sort of opening of the door or something. They put a gate in there that says you have to use this new item and understand that skill.
Well, yeah, but actually, I think most of the people here we make LARPs, and in LARPs, time is very precious to us. We don't have time for the training new mechanic, then train new mechanic, then train new mechanic. We have one and a half day for all the game, and we need to jump in as fast as we can. That's the problem.
Right, but are you adding new mechanics halfway through your LARP, or are you giving everybody the rules?
Actually, we'll just throw at them all the rule sets we have and just say.
Right, you come in, you walk in, you drop the rulebook on them. Yeah.
But usually we also have a closed rules for some classes, for some other players.
And we have even more.
And yes, and sometimes it can be hard for another player to learn these rules.
Yeah. Beth and I used to do, was it Mage?
We did Mage and we did
Vampire for a bit, yeah. So World of Darkness LARP rules, and that's all kind of like. But again, we all have access to the rule books. Do we have the access to everybody else's rule book? No. But the nice thing about nice thing about LARPs, you have a storyteller or a games master who can do that training and experience. When you're dealing with computer games, I don't have that base. I can't put up put up your hand if you don't understand what's going on, or, hey, give me a second, I need to understand what's happening in the scene. So with that, inside of games, for computers has to be built in.
Yeah. My point is, what can we steal from the computer game design?
Sure.
Into analog games.
Sure.
To make the learning curve steeper.
I think part of it, if you wanted to kind of speed it up, are you doing like full societies where you have multiple different game days and stages?
Yes.
Yeah. So what I would have is kind of bridge in, if you've got an advanced group, have the first day kind of just be your advanced group working together, and have your beginners working with one of the storytellers more directly for the first day, in order to kind of have that scaffolding, that early prep. And then as you bridge in, then start to do the next step.
Okay. It's like a supervising the first PDC cycle.
Right. So kind of watch that first cycle until you know that they've got it, then push them into the play. So I would never make as a storyteller a brand new player in the game in like Vampire and Mage the most powerful person in the room, like the prince or the whatever, because they need to really know the rules in order to effectively apply their trades. So if you have, also a lot of this, I'm assuming some sort of medieval role play against it. Okay, great. Medievals have apprentices, right? So earlier players could apprentice to one of the higher players, just as I have my graduate students. That could be a way to kind of speed up that transfer of knowledge. Okay. Does that answer a few different questions? Okay.
Are there more difficult processes than killing a Goomba are sorted in the same way? For example,
killing multiple Goombas. No.
I mean, for example, we're making a game about medieval intrigue.
Right.
Will the scheme be the same?
So it would probably. So here I'm basically showing this plus this equals the ability to do this. But then you may need to know how to kill Goombas plus something else in order to do this. So if I had, for example, Link shoots an arrow, Link drops a bomb, and I press both drop bomb and shoot arrow, then I get bomb arrows. So there's but I had to get a whole bunch of scaffoldings to get to that point.
So actually we need to split the difficult process, like medieval intrigue, in some primitive elements.
Right. What are
we can scaffold the elements only.
Yes. So I would look at what is kind of the base elements for all of these. So if it's medieval intrigue, then it could be secret messaging could be part of it, right? It could also be understanding positional hierarchies, and then you need to both send a secret message and understand the positional hierarchy in order to get it sent correctly, or something like that. So I would say figure out what your main big actionable goal is, and then look at the sub-actions and the sub-actions and that, and then try to figure out where people's knowledge is failing. Because the deadening cycle is used in continuous improvement processes in automotive, manufacturing, teaching and learning. So it's a pretty well established kind of thing, and it's things like it are kind of all over the place. So it's got some history to it at least. Okay. So rules and mechanics, rule system. What game will we play? So here's a really interesting book coming out of 2012 called Game Mechanics Advanced Games Design. And this set out something known as machinations. So this is representable in a common language. It can be simulated. For those of you that are computer scientists, these are basically data structures. They have structures and connections. You have producers, consumer, and trader nodes. And this is really for kind of understanding game economies. And so economy could be anything from, I've got this many shekels, you give me this many arrows, to I have a barracks and I want to build this many units out of it and I have this much time in order to do it. Okay. So we have pools that contain resources, so this could be seen as your bag of coin. Sources to add resources, this is your miners. Sinks to remove resources. gates which pull and distribute, gates that pull and hold resources. So you can see there's a little like time symbol on them. And you can also have queues for that, converters to change one type of resource into another, and trades to change ownership. So Dormans actually has a full system available for free on this website where you can go and glue these pieces together, and then it puts out graphs of the economies that that will create in terms of filling in. Edges, you have flow rates of 1, there's a flow rate of 3, flow at a random rate, flow with a skill point based or with a strategy based level. So you can even put in, okay, they're a more advanced player, they would probably do this rather than this. You have state conditionals, you can say if it's greater than 5, go this way, otherwise go this way. Activators on various edges, and this would be, for example, discard down to 5, activate when more than 5 cards are in a deck. So if I have more than, this is, I gain a card, if I have more than 5, then I sink one away, and otherwise I go on. So you can kind of lay out the whole game inside of this, and then look at what is happening in terms of your economies. So here's some various gates, types, you've got percentiles, you've got numbers, you've got conditionals. You've got various activation modes, so when do these activate? They can be user response, start of the simulation, fire every turn, fire up the response of an active player action. It's a little bit hard to read, but it's basically like another circle inside the circle. So from this you can then also build, like larger structures that are common. So this would be a static engine. So you have a source that's firing on every single turn, giving you some energy. From that energy you can make some actions and sync them away. Maybe I have something that can upgrade this. Then I can create a dynamic engine. I have a source, it creates some energy. If I put energy into research based on player action, then I get upgrades from a pool, and this changes how much is gained every turn, and then I can use that to make other actions. Okay. So this is one way of kind of looking at the rule system and then coming up with these sorts of graphs. So based on these diagrams, then you can have tests. They're constructed attack stratagems that create deadlocks or live locks in the control structures of the game. So either where the game will completely break, or we'll get into one of these, you do this, I do that, nothing will ever end. And it allows construction of kind of appropriate fixes. Consumables in Zelda for breaking pots is an example of this. I can't beat this boss unless I have enough bombs, but I need rupees in order to get that, and that means I have to go kill a whole bunch of things. Oh no. Oh wait, there's this room with a whole bunch of pots, and I can go and break them and steal all the rupees out of them, and then when I leave the room and I come back in, the pots are there, yay. Worker modeling within real-time strategy systems, maybe inside of a LARP system, understanding how things move forward. These are also really nice for kind of modeling play-to-win or wait games, like Clash of Clans, to understand, hey, let's make there be a deadlock or a live lock or a hard one to get out of, unless you pay us $5.99 or whatever in terms of that. So that's kind of all of my prepared talk. So I'd like to thank you for sitting through that, and I'm willing to take a bunch more questions. Also, we are recruiting right now for bachelor's and master's students, and Marina over here is our recruiter for that. There's some informational diagrams there. I have some extra cards of mine on the desk if anybody's interested in joining us maybe one day at Annapolis University or know someone who is. So I'd like to thank especially the organizers for allowing me to do this. I guess it's a little bit weird for this conference to have one such as myself here for it. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Если у вас есть какие-то вопросы по поводу поступления в университет, по поводу того, что наш университет представляет из себя, да, вы можете их задавать сейчас, либо можете взять брошюру, которая находится на столе, там тоже подробно очень расписана информация о нашем университете, какие программы мы представляем для подготовки, да, каким образом там можно попасть.
Слушайте, если мы собрались, может, вы скажете просто пару слов неформально?
Пару слов про наш университет.
Про Иннополис, да.
Да, хорошо. Вообще, кто-нибудь слышал до этого о нашем университете? Нет. Что слышали?
Современный университет, иностранные профессора, как мы видим, перспективное направление исследований.
Наш университет, да, университет Иннополис, он был создан в 2012 году. В этом году нам исполняется в декабре 4 года. Ура, ура! Мы достаточно молодой университет. В прошлом году, в 2015
готовится большой массовый набор в наш университет. В настоящий момент у нас учатся около 600 человек. Направление подготовки у нас информатика и вычислительная техника, да, это computer science. Это единственное направление на данный момент. У нас есть бакалавриат, да, 4 года обучения, и также есть магистратура. Магистратура себя представляет несколько направлений. Направления достаточно разные, да, это Big Data, то есть управление большими данными, это также управление разработкой программного обеспечения, это робототехника и Security Systems, это безопасность сетей. Какие у вас вопросы сейчас возникли?
Где для начала?
Где находимся? Мы находимся в городе Иннополис. В прошлом году был открыт новый город Иннополис. Он находится в 40 километрах от города Казань. Буквально здесь недалеко, в Верхнеусловском районе. Если вам интересно, да, можете зайти к нам на сайт university.innopolis.ru, там можно записаться на день открытых дверей. Если вы недалеко находитесь, да, от города Казань, то в принципе вам будет несложно приехать к нам в город Иннополис, посмотреть на сам город Иннополис, посетить презентацию и пройтись по нашему университету, по общежитию, зайти в спорткомплекс и различные места, которые у нас представлены в нашем городе.
Возможность дистанционного обучения есть?
Что?
Возможность дистанционного
Нет,
обучения.
дистанционного обучения у нас пока
Когда
что нет.
откроется?
Не в ближайшее время. Да. Также, да, если...
В смысле, не в ближайшие 5 лет.
Не могу планировать, потому что все меняется очень быстро, поэтому, возможно, в ближайшие 5 лет как раз таки это уже будет возможно.
Рассылочку по Зиму сделайте, пожалуйста.
Что?
Рассылочку
Да,
по
молодец,
Зиму.
Хорошо. И также, да, у нас в этом году открылись курсы IT-подготовки. Вот кто из вас связан каким-то образом, да, с математикой, с IT, в принципе, с этой сферой?
Не будем ставить нахально математика и IT.
Нет, просто показываю вам то, что не обязательно IT быть связанным, да, чтобы была хоть какая-то связь, да, с IT. У нас открыты IT-курсы подготовки, это курсы для разработчиков, которые там год или около того работали уже в этой сфере и хотят повысить свой уровень квалификации, да, в различных направлениях. Это и языки программирования, такие как Java, и Python, C++, C#. И после этого получить возможность найти работу и трудоустроиться у нас в городе Иннополис. Вот такая вот тоже есть информация, если вам это интересно. Пожалуйста, да, возьмите обязательно брошюрки. Я готова буду ответить на вопрос. Лично, если у вас сейчас нет вопросов, да, вдруг вы решите там буквально через минутки 3-4, потому что я буду здесь, буду готова ответить на ваши вопросы. Большое спасибо вам.
Спасибо вам.
Спасибо.
Спасибо.
Спасибо.